After having his theater destroyed by a major catastrophe and losing all his fame, a little koala will have to find a new team of singers in order to get the patronage of the greatest actress of all time. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Sing, from 2016. The city's theater is about to premiere the play Epiphany, with a performance by the great singer Nana Noodleman, the most famous theater star of the moment. In the audience, a little 6-year-old koala cub called Buster Moon is watching the play with his father, and as he watches the whole spectacle, he realizes that his dream of becoming an astronaut has been dashed, as he has fallen completely in love with the spirit of the theater. Years later, Buster becomes known as the biggest theater producer in the city, and with the help of his father, he manages to open the Moon Theater. Over the years, however, Buster has lost a large part of his audience, and because of his financial problems with his theater's expenses, he is on the run from the bank and his employees. On another working day, after asking Mrs. Kiki to let everyone know he's gone for lunch, the theater manager rides his bike to a restaurant, where he meets up with his friend Eddie, whose father has always sponsored his theater. During the conversation, Eddie tells him that his father is tired of always helping Buster, and that he will no longer sponsor his plays. But the producer isn't bothered in the slightest by the threat, and says he has a new idea to bring thousands of people to his theater. After lunch, Buster Moon returns to his office and asks his assistant to make new flyers for his newest event, the singing contest. However, the producer realizes that he doesn't have an attractive amount of money for the winner of the competition, and after pooling all his savings, he gets a total of $1,000 for the contest prize. Ms. Kiki then begins to make the flyers on her computer, but at that moment, the fan next to her turns in her direction, and her glass eye pops out, bouncing on the keyboard and increasing the amount of the prize to $100,000. Without noticing, the old lady starts printing, and after recovering her glass eye, she picks up the pile of leaflets in her arms. At that moment, the fan turns towards the assistant again, and the wind blows the papers towards the window, sending them flying all over the city. As a result, many animals come across the competition ticket and are very excited about the opportunity that they could become great singers. The next morning, Mr. Buster sees a huge queue in front of his theater and is excited to start auditioning. The manager and his assistant watch countless bizarre and embarrassing performances, but are amazed by Johnny's voice, which instantly catches Mr. Moon's attention. Soon after, Mina enters the stage to perform, but her tremendous shyness prevents her from singing, and Mike, already out of patience, intimidates her into leaving the stage, taking her place in the competition, and causing the girl to leave disappointed. Despite being a mischievous little mouse, Mike sings well and quickly manages to win the producer's attention. Several other candidates present themselves, and the auditions last all day. After dozens of hours listening to thousands of contestants, Buster Moon decides to call them all back to the stage for the final selection, where the best singers will be chosen. The producer selects a group of frogs to be the dancers, and also chooses Ash, as he believes the girl could be promising. But as excited as she was by the invitation, Ash decided not to accept it, as Lance, her boyfriend, was not invited to join the group. Buster then dismisses the other contestants, leaving only the solo singers for selection. Mike and Pete are also chosen for the team, and the koala begins to think about what to do with Rosita, since he really likes her voice, but finds her very dull. He then asks the woman to pair up with Gunter, a lively dancing piglet, who will bring the excitement the group needs. Near the end of the selection, Mr. Buster selects Johnny as a solo singer, believing that the boy has a promising voice. The other contestants then leave, and while Buster is writing down the names of the singers, Mike asks permission to take a look at the $100,000 prize, as he has never seen so much money. After hearing what the little mouse has just said, the producer panics and picks up one of the flyers to check what's going on. When they realize what a big mistake they've made, Mr. Moon and Mrs. Kiki rush to the office with their friend Eddie, and the koala tries to calm down his secretary, who is crying desperately. The friends then try to find a way to reverse this misunderstanding, and Buster decides that the best way to solve this problem is by premiering the best show the Moon Theater has ever put on. At home, Mina is feeling defeated for not even having performed, and her grandfather, who is disgusted by the situation, advises her, saying that she should go back to the theater and demand a second chance from Buster. On the other side of town, Johnny is at the side of his father, who is a crime boss, and is very excited to tell his son about the new operation he is planning. The gorilla has gathered his henchmen to plan a major cargo heist, which will be carried out over the next few days, and this time he has put his son in charge of the escape, as he wants to make him a permanent member of his team. Back at the apartment, the rocker couple are still arguing about whether or not to accept Buster's invitation, and no matter how much Ash argues with her boyfriend, Lance doesn't want to listen to what she has to say. While putting her babies to sleep, Rosita can't find a babysitter, but that doesn't discourage her from going out to rehearsal the next day. Hours later, as the woman is leaving the house, the children's alarm goes off, starting a huge mechanism that she has set up, which makes the whole house work by itself, while her voice is played back on a tape recorder. Backstage at the Moon Theater, the contestants begin their training and preparations, but just then, the power goes out, leaving everyone in the dark. After calming everyone down, Buster orders them to go back to training in the dark, while he goes up to the roof to find a solution to the blackout. While trying to move around with the power socket, the koala ends up falling and hanging by the wire. He is then met by Mina, who is on her way to the theater. Buster then says that he might reconsider the girl's participation if she manages to help him up onto the roof again, and after being lifted by the elephant's trunk, the producer manages to get the power back on. With the theater fully lit and rehearsals back on track, the koala invites Mina to be his stage assistant, and before the girl can even remind him that she's come for a singing audition, the producer continues walking, and gives his new apprentice a tour. With a credit card, Mike buys a luxury sports car and uses it to get into parties and attract the attention of a woman he's in love with, because he's confident he'll be the winner. In the evening, after arriving home, Mina finds everyone in the neighborhood waiting right outside her door, and to avoid disappointing her family and friends, she decides not to tell them that she missed the audition. While cleaning his theater, Mr. Buster receives a visit from Judith, the bank's secretary, who says that if the producer's debts are not paid by the end of the month, he will have his property completely taken over by the agency. The koala then returns to his competitors, starting Mike's rehearsal, and Mina begins to help him with his stage duties. At that moment, Mrs. Kiki realizes that her glass eye has disappeared once again, and while Buster is drinking his coffee, he notices that the eye is inside his cup. Suddenly the producer spits the object away, causing it to crash into the stage lights, almost knocking them over onto Mike. Next to the floodlights, some sandbags are also knocked over, and one of them hits Pete hard. To make matters worse, the overturned equipment starts a fire, and while Mina rushes to put out the flames caused by the accident, Pete is rescued by an ambulance. Outside, Buster comes across the dancing frogs leaving because they kept arguing and decided to quit the show. To enjoy his evening, Mike decides to go to a casino and manages to win a lot of money playing poker. But just as he was about to leave, he is unmasked by one of the bears, who notices the card hidden in his body, and realizes that the little mouse has cheated. Enraged, the men set off after the little one, who runs madly to avoid being swallowed up by the gangsters. Mike then manages to get to his car, and as much as the bears try to hold on to the vehicle, they end up being thrown away, and the little mouse manages to escape unharmed. That same evening, Ash is arriving home, and when she opens the door, she finds her boyfriend singing next to another woman. The rocker is devastated by the betrayal and throws Lance out of her apartment. The next day, Buster meets his friend Eddie, who is on his way to his grandmother Nana's house, and decides to accompany him. The young sheep grandmother is none other than the great actress and singer Nana Noodleman, and the koala had the brilliant idea of begging the theater star to sponsor his show, so that he could actually award the prize of $100,000 to the winner of the competition. However, Nana doesn't have the slightest interest in helping the producer, because for her, it was Buster's shows that scared the audience away from the theater. In the past, the theater was super famous, and its big shows formed huge queues in the streets. Trying to convince her, Buster says he'll make it all happen again, and invites the woman to come to his theater and watch a play in person. Despite not believing a word the producer says, Nana decides to accept the invitation, as she doesn't have better things to do in her daily life. Excited by the opportunity, Buster gathers his contestants together, and after breaking the news that they are going to perform for the greatest actress of all time, they start a big dress rehearsal. While the producer is showing him the plant he has created to improve the stage, Johnny receives a call from his father, who orders the boy to meet him at the appointed place, as the shipment they intended to steal has just arrived in town. The thugs then go down the sewer to carry out the robbery, and in order not to miss the most important rehearsal of his life, Johnny decides to run back to the theater so that he can complete his training and return before the robbery is over. In the singing rehearsals, everything is going wrong, as none of the participants seem prepared to perform. Ash tries to carry on with her training, but she's so sad about her breakup and the betrayal she's suffered that she can't do anything but cry. Right after her, Rosita tries to dance and ends up falling, being carried off by her partner. As a result of this disaster, Buster decides to call Johnny, who has just arrived. The boy quickly brings out his piano and starts practicing on stage. At this point, Rosita feels that she is not excited enough for the rehearsal and decides to leave. Meanwhile, during his practice, Johnny sings very well as always, but ends up playing a few notes out of tune, and Buster suggests he try his other song, but when he looks back at the stage, the boy has already disappeared. Already late to pick up the gang at the scene of the robbery, Johnny drives madly, but he ends up stuck in traffic and has nowhere else to go. During the robbery, when they realize they are alone, the bandits try to flee through the alleyways, but are instantly caught by the police. The boy goes to visit his father in prison, and while being pressured by the man, Johnny decides to admit that he doesn't want to be part of the gang, as his lifelong dream is to become a successful singer. Johnny promises his father that he will get the money and that he will release him from jail soon. Disgusted, the criminal says that his son has nothing to do with him, and leaves. During the night, Mina and Buster team up to carry out renovations at the Moon Theater, and after fixing the floor, the pair build a giant aquarium on stage. Backstage, Mr. Buster prepares all the contestants for the start of the performances and encourages Mina to put her shyness aside and finally start singing for real. Nana Noodleman arrives at the theater, and after being directed to the special box, sits down to watch the show. Meanwhile, Mike is talking to his girlfriend on the phone when he is caught by the criminal bears, who suddenly capture him. The leader of the gangsters tries to swallow the little mouse, who promises that he will return his money as soon as he wins Buster's competition, and reveals to the bears about the $100,000 prize. On stage, the producer begins the performance, and several glowing squids light up the stage as they dance around Mr. Moon, which impresses Nana. But the show is interrupted by the sudden arrival of the bears, who are looking for Buster so they can get their money back. The evil boss orders the koala to hand over the chest and uses a club to break it. Once freed, Mike tries to calm the situation and goes to the destroyed chest to get the money, but as he approaches the wreckage, the little mouse notices that there is nothing valuable in the prize and accuses Buster of being a liar. Due to all the movements of the competitors, who are confused by the situation, the glass in the room begins to crack and the squid tank is completely destroyed. With the strong flow of water everywhere, the pipe begins to collapse, causing a huge flood inside the Moon Theater. The bears are swept away with the competitors, and Buster tries to climb up the grandstand, escaping through the ceiling boards to survive, while the whole place begins to collapse. Overpowered by the strong current of water, Mina ends up getting stuck in the entrance and enters the ticket booth. Johnny decides to use the strength of his body to push Mina and break down the wall of the entrance, releasing the water into the city streets. Furious, Nana leaves the place, and doesn't even hear any apologies from Buster. Even with the great destruction, none of the members of the group is seriously injured, and while everyone recovers, they witness the imposing Moon Theater being totally devastated. Buster is devastated by everything that has happened and can do nothing but cry, consoled by Mrs. Kiki. In prison, Johnny goes to visit his father, and after waiting a long time for him to show up, the boy realizes that the criminal doesn't want to see him, and leaves. When she gets home, Mina can't stop crying and is comforted by her family as they watch the news report about the accident. Ash, who was on her way home upset, comes across her ex-boyfriend singing in a restaurant, right next to his current girlfriend, which makes the girl indignant and makes her leave crying. Even though everyone feels defeated and disappointed, the contestants come together to pay a visit to Buster, who is living with Eddie and leading a life of pure sadness. The group tries to console the koala, saying that they will find a new place to present their shows, and they argue that like him, they have all lost something important so that they can take part in the contest. However, nothing seems to excite the producer, so he just closes the door and lies down again. Just then, Mina appears to deliver a cake to her friend, and says that they will be able to get out of this situation if they have confidence and courage. Buster then says that he no longer has any reason to trust their plans, and that people like them know deep down that they are not capable of becoming stars. The koala's words put an end to Mina's mood, and she leaves in shame. Sometime later, Eddie receives a call from Buster, who asks him to bring him a pair of swimming trunks. Without understanding a thing, the sheep does as his friend asks, and when he meets the koala and Mrs. Kiki at the appointed place, he discovers that the man is going to use his own body to wash cars so that he can get some money. In order not to let Theater Moon's story end like this, Eddie recalls the lessons his friend had taught him in the past, and that, as he said, you shouldn't fear failure when you have nothing left to lose. The sheep starts helping Buster with the car wash, using the wool from his body to dry the vehicles. At the end of the day, as he finishes washing the last car, the koala hears a voice singing in the distance and decides to go there. When he arrives at the source of the sound, he discovers that the voice is actually Mina's, who is singing amidst the wreckage of the theater. Buster asks her if she could sing like that to a large audience, and although she's not sure she has the courage, she admits she'd love to try. Confident that this will be their last chance to present their show, the producer calls all the contestants and asks them to return to the place where the theater was destroyed. The group of friends come together to start the reconstruction of the building and spread the word throughout the city so that everyone can come and see the grand return of the Moon Theater. When the evening arrives, Buster's team is ready to perform, and Rosita and Gunter are the first to take the stage. The duo quickly win the approval of the audience, who become increasingly excited. After dancing for a few minutes, Rosita goes behind the set and changes costumes, changing the performance into a big show, where they dance like real theater professionals and drive the audience crazy. The curtains open again and Johnny begins his solo performance, where he sings super animatedly while playing his piano. The public quickly fell in love with the boy's talent, and everyone in town began to follow Theater Moon's show on television. In prison, the criminals watch the boy's performance, and when his father approaches the TV to check what they are seeing, he is completely impressed by his son. Overcome with guilt for the way he treated Johnny, the gorilla uses his strength to destroy the cell wall and escape from the prison so that he can meet up with the boy. The singer finishes his show, and the audience cheers, shouting Johnny's name non-stop. Backstage, all the members of the group congratulate the gorilla, who is still sad because his father didn't even see his performance. The producer then calls Ash up to the stage, and as she prepares to start her song, she is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Judith, who turns off the music and says that the group is trespassing on bank property, and that they must leave the place immediately. At that moment, Ash starts tapping her foot on the floor and creates a rhythm by herself so that she can start singing. Furious, the bank consultant says she'll call the police, and Buster quickly reconnects the girl's guitar to the soundboard, and she sings her song like a big star. At the end of the melody, Ash takes a powerful guitar solo, while her thorns are thrown everywhere, frightening the audience who have to protect themselves from the projectiles. Even so, after her performance, the soloist is applauded by everyone, and the producer introduces her as the newest pop singer of the moment. Meanwhile, the gorilla keeps running away from the cops and does an insane parkour through the city's buildings while trying to reach his son. Then Mike begins his number, where he sings softly and holds the audience's attention throughout the song. In the city's nightclub, the bears see on television that the mouse is back at the theater, and they set off to capture him, followed by the singer's girlfriend, who runs to save her companion. Johnny is still saddened, but when he looks back, the boy notices that the crime boss has finally come to visit him, and after giving his son a big hug, the gorilla tells him that he is very proud of him. The police helicopters begin to approach the scene, and the strong wind created by the propellers ends up getting in the way of Mike, who is pushed away from the microphone. The little mouse is almost sucked upwards towards the blades, but realizing that they have lost track of the escaped prisoner, the pilots withdraw from the theater, and Mike ends his performance in style as he swings back onto the stage. Johnny's father bids him farewell and walks away proud of everything his son has achieved. Buster announces that they will now perform the last piece of the show, and calls Mina to sing, but noticing that the girl is late, the koala goes to look for her, and finds her hiding backstage. After encouraging her, he takes the singer on stage, and the elephant family is thrilled to see her on stage. Outside the theater, Mike is leaving when he is captured by the bears. The little guy is then swallowed by the boss, and when all seems lost, the criminal is hit in the stomach by the mouse's girlfriend, who spits Mike out. Once they're both in the convertible, the girl speeds off, and after a great chase, the couple manages to escape the gangsters unharmed. In the theater, Mina takes a deep breath and begins the last show of the evening. The girl sings shyly for a few seconds, but after getting used to the audience and building up her courage, she lets out her voice and sings for real, driving the whole audience crazy. The elephant's voice is so loud that her singing knocks down the walls of the stage, but the destruction gets the fans more and more excited, and Mina brings the evening to a close with a bang. At the end of the big show, as he watches the group of friends thanking them for their applause, Buster recognizes Nana in the crowd, and is filled with pride when he notices that the star is applauding his singers with a smile on her face. The next morning, Nana Noodleman signed the contract for the property, and after days of renovations and concerts, the famous Moon Theater had its newest reopening. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.